Point 2. How participants saw the movement. Let us now look at the different social groups that participated in the civil disobedience movement. Why did they join the movement? What were their ideas? What did Swaraj mean to them? In the countryside, rich peasant communities like the Patidars of Gujarat and the Jats of Uttar Pradesh were active in the movement. Being producers of commercial crops, they were very hard hit by the trade depression and falling prices. As their cash income disappeared, they found it impossible to pay the government revenue demand. And the refusal of the government to reduce the revenue demand led to widespread resentment. These rich peasants became enthusiastic supporters of the civil disobedience movement, organizing their communities and at times forcing reluctant members to participate in the boycott programs. For them, the fight for Swaraj was a struggle against high revenues, but they were deeply disappointed when the movement was called off in 1931 without the revenue rates being revised. So, when the movement was restarted in 1932, many of them refused to participate. The poorer peasantry were not just interested in the lowering of the revenue demand. Many of them were small tenants cultivating land they had rented from landlords. As the depression continued and cash incomes dwindled, the small tenants found it difficult to pay their rent. They wanted the unpaid rent to the landlord to be remitted. They joined a variety of radical movements, often led by socialists and communists. Apprehensive of raising issues that might upset the rich peasants and landlords, the Congress was unwilling to support no rent campaign in most places. So the relationship between the poor peasants and the Congress remained uncertain. What about the business classes? How did they relate to the civil disobedience movement? During the First World War, Indian merchants and industrialists had made huge profits and become powerful. Keen on expanding their business, they now reacted against colonial policies that restricted business activities. They wanted protection against imports of foreign goods and a sterling foreign exchange ratio that would discourage imports. To organize business interest, they formed the Indian Industrial and Commercial Congress in 1920 and the Federation of the Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industries FICCI in 1927, led by prominent industrialization like Purushottam Das, Thakur Das, and G.D. Birla. The industrialists attacked colonial control over the Indian economy and supported the civil disobedience movement when it was first launched. They gave financial assistance and refused to buy or sell imported goods. Most businessmen came to see Swaraj as a time when colonial restrictions on business would be longer exist and trade and industry would flourish without constraints. But after the failure of the Round Table Conference, business groups were no longer uniformly enthusiastic. They were apprehensive of the spread of militant activities and worried about prolonged disruption of business, as well as of the growing influence of socialism amongst the younger members of the Congress. The industrial working classes did not participate in the civil disobedience movement in large numbers, except in the Nagpur regions. As the industrialists came closer to the Congress, workers stayed aloof, but in spite of that, some workers did participate in the civil disobedience movement, selectively adopting some of the ideas of Gandhian program like boycott of foreign goods as part of their own movements against low wages and poor working conditions. There were strikes by railways workers in 1930 and dock workers in 1932. In 1930, thousands of workers in Chotanagpur tin mines wore Gandhi caps and participated in protest rallies and boycott campaigns. But the Congress was reluctant to include workers' demands as part of its program of a struggle. It felt that this would alienate industrialists and divide the anti imperial forces. Another important feature of the civil disobedience movement was the large scale participation of women. During Gandhiji's Salt March, thousands of women came out of their homes to listen to him. They participated in protest marches, manufactured salt, and picketed foreign cloth and liquor shops. Many went to jail. In urban areas, these women were from high caste families. In rural areas, they came from rich peasant households. Moved by Gandhiji's call, they began to see service to the nation as a sacred duty of women. Yet, this increased public role did not necessarily mean any radical change in the way the position of women was visualized. Gandhiji was convinced that it was the duty of women to look after home and hearth, be good mothers and good wives. And for a long time, the Congress was reluctant to allow women to hold any position of authority within the organization. It was keen only on their symbolic presence. Box 1. To the altar of this revolution, we have brought our youth as incense. Many nationalists thought that the struggle against the British could not be won through non-violence. In 1928, the Hindustan Socialist Republican Army HSRA was founded at a meeting in Firoz Shah Kotla ground in Delhi. Amongst its leaders were Bhagat Singh, Jatin Das, and Ajay Ghosh. In a series of dramatic actions in different parts of India, the HSRA targeted some of the symbols of British power. In April 1929, Bhagat Singh and Batukeshwar Dutt threw a bomb in the Legislative Assembly. In the same year, there was an attempt to blow up the train that Lord Irwin was travelling in. Bhagat Singh was 23 when he was tried and executed by the colonial government. During his trial, Bhagat Singh stated that he did not wish to glorify the cult of the bomb and pistol, but wanted a revolution in society. Revolution is the inalienable right of mankind. Freedom is the imprescriptible birthright of all. The laborer is the real sustainer of society. To the altar of this revolution, we have brought our youth as incense. For no sacrifice is too great for so magnificent a cause. We are content. We await the advent of revolution. Inqilab Jindabad. Some important dates 1918 to 19. Distressed UP peasants organized by Baba Ramchandra. April 1919. Gandhian Hartal against Rowlatt Act. Jallianwala Bagh Massacre. January 1921. Non-cooperation and Khilafat movement launched. February 1922. Chauri Chaura. Gandhiji withdraws non-cooperation movement. May 1924. Alluri Sitaram Raju arrested, ending a 2-year armed tribal struggle. December 1929. Lahore Congress. Congress adopts the demand for Purn Swaraj. 1930. Ambedkar establishes Depressed Classes Association. March 1930. Gandhiji begins civil disobedience movement by breaking salt law at Dandi. March 1931. Gandhiji ends civil disobedience movement. December 1931. Second Round Table Conference. 1932. Civil disobedience relaunched.